Okay, guys, this is what I got to say. Stand and deliver in 11 days. I actually did this video a couple of times because I was debating about trying to do stand and deliver on the 6th, but I'm not going to do that. I have to remind myself that it's too much. It is going to wipe me out, and that's not good. So I'm going to either do it Sunday morning or probably what I did last time, stand and deliver on Monday morning. That would be the wisest thing for me because I don't want to burn myself out because as an insomniac, I will stay up until literally my body shakes. And I have to remind myself I'm human. And I'm not just an ordinary human. I'm a human who's old. I may be still pretty young for this lovely face, but I know that I'm over 50. And that kind of stuff isn't always the most wisest thing to do. And particularly, you're literally shaking because you're badly sleep deprived. But I want to hear your point of view. I want to hear, because I'm going to probably do Monday for stand and deliver. But I want to hear what you would do. Leave a comment on how you hear what I'm saying. If you were going to review stand and deliver as well as WrestleMania Night 1 and 2, how would you do it? Because there will be a gap in between stand and deliver from noon until what, maybe 3 or 4 o'clock? So how would you do it? How would you do your video? Because not only you got to review it, you also have to do a video on it before you see WrestleMania. And then when WrestleMania is done, you do another video, which with images in there. How would you feel? I want to know how you guys think about it. But let's go into this NXT, which you see the title. Drama that was well done. Because let's make this clear. We got a show here. We got a developmental from HBK. Let's put our cards on the table because I'm going to say this. I'm not going to be heavily detailed in this review. You don't need a heavy detail because if you watched it, you know that this was actually done quite well. They spotlighted many people like Soruka. They spotlighted. They gave Rich Holland a moment, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. We got Lyra Valkyria's vid pack, which was actually one of the best I've seen her ever produce, which I will talk about that as well. But this was actually a well done show. This particular one is well done. It spotlighted a lot of people. But it's not like the main roster. Let's make this clear. If you love the main roster, if you love Raw, you love SmackDown, more power to you. And the one, you know who you are, my friend. I actually saw Just Alex's video on Monday. I did. And I saw your comment on his video. And I saw someone showing a sad crying face trying to screw with you. So I understand. You did speak your mind. You talked about Ari. So I'm very glad for you to say that. So thank you. Not just because I've said that, you notice it yourself. But I did see it. And I see how happy Just Alex is. He freaking doesn't care. Happy for him, more power to him. But if I am right, he's going to regret all of that when all this goes down. JD understands it, but he still sees The Rock as the problem, not Ari Emanuel. It's not about The Rock. But the point here is, you look at the main roster with Triple H, and then you look at NXT with HBK, and weirdly enough, you do have more better booking here than you got on SmackDown and Raw. The Rock is not the most biggest emphasis. Because of what's going on with The Rock, a lot of people have been thrown to the wayside. Literally, their booking has been done not very well. And if you believe they have, more power to you. But as a fair reviewer who's been doing this for now 11 years, nearing 12 now. I started in 2012. It's 2024. I'm almost doing 12 years now. I can tell you honestly, I've seen booking from WWE when Vince was there, when Triple H could get something done, when he was on NXT Black and Gold, and when he tried to take over and did eventually take over after TKO Group Holdings took over and Vince was no longer a focus. If you see the focus now, in the last couple of months, it is not about proper storytelling. It isn't. It does have some elements of proper storytelling, but it ain't. It's not proper storytelling. This is about proper finances. This is about what gives you the most amount of money. What will give the most amount of shock that will bring in as much money as possible. Good storytelling is being, luckily with The Rock, Cody, and that's it. Roman's not the main focus. Drew is not the main focus, even though CM Punk and Seth Rollins had the moment. Seth Rollins and Drew should not need CM Punk to help them. They should have been booked correctly, and they weren't. So you see here, we don't have that much, but we got something decent. Now, let's go to Dijak and Shawn Spears. I still don't fully understand what the full story here is, because what they're doing with Shawn Spears, and they are doing something with Joe Gacy dealing with Shawn Spears, because that's what they do with Joe Gacy now. As a crazy mofo, he's just messing with people that are interesting to him. So the match went down. Dijak looked good. It was a very rough match in the end. Spears won. I'm not surprised. He just came back. But we don't know where they're going to go with Shawn Spears, and we don't know what's going to happen with Joe Gacy. Yes, he threw the chair from the top of the roof saying he's returning it because he stole Shawn Spears' chair, but we don't know. Let me give it to you like this. Thea Hale versus Jasmine. It was purposely done for one reason. A match between Thea and JC James. Will it be at Stand and Deliver? It should be, because it's been built the way it's been. They have built Thea Hale for almost a year now to go from that little chipper girl that was just super hyper to trying to become a legitimate wrestler. She reached here, then she tried to become a grown-ass woman, which made her go up about here, then finally reaching here where they are at the odds of her and JC James. So JC James has to put her over now because of how she treated her and wanting revenge. So there's one story that has been booked for nearly a year. Whether you like it or not is not the point. It has been booked pretty well. The only thing that I'm believing is lacking is what's going on with Andre Chase and JC James. I still believe when this is over with Thea, you're going to see JC James try to get control of Chase U again. Well, technically, she was already in control of it, trying to clean it up from what happened with Andre Chase. But now, I do believe that they should, if they go there, Andre will be facing JC James. He will. Somehow, either she's going to gain control through Andre Chase, or without him realizing it, she already has gained control and is going to use that until she gets kicked out. That's just me. Okay. Lola Vice versus Natalya. I'm not going to tell you that this was a great match. This was more about Petrovic's dealing with Lola Vice than it was about Natalya being with somebody. I will say her ring attire, and this Natalya is reminding me something. I'm blanking on what ring attire is that. Who does it remind me of? I'm not getting it. That ring attire is reminding me of somebody. I just don't remember. But this was more about Petrovic and about Lola Vice. It's a very low-level feud. It's not really meaning anything. But it does give them this moment that maybe will be settled before Stand and Deliver. So there you go. Next, Stacks versus Dragunov. Let me give it to you like this. It was a good damn match. And it goes into the story between Dragunov and the Tony D'Angelo and the D'Angelo family trying to get what he wants. And after you got like this from getting his hand smashed by Stacks, he's now going to go and have a dinner with the D'Angelo family somewhere special. Don't know where. You don't want to know. Let me give it to you. Let me educate you. In New York, there are very few places that you go to have a special type of a dinner like that. And when it's been set up like that, usually it means something very special. Either you end or this is supposed to culminate in something. And so this is going to be interesting. They are still doing the story for Dragunov, who's still being a dominant champion that will do anything and destroy his body to win. And Tony D'Angelo, who has turned into the true Don of NXT. And how far they're going to push him. And the question for me is this. Is he ready for the main roster yet? And if he is, will they put him on the main roster? Because the question is, do they have the room for him? If he's already nearing the point where he's ready, but they got no room, this makes sense. But this is just me. Alright, Duke Hudson versus Briggs. Another story, and that's supposed to be around Umafemi because he's trying to see who his next opponent is for Stand and Deliver. I'm going to tell you this, you already know who won, and now there's going to be a triple threat. But after that promo from Umafemi, no. Uma is not ready for prime time. He's not even close. As an in-ring competitor, he does look very green. He's using a lot of power, but he's not using strategy yet. He's not using psychology. He's just using flat-out strength for his matches in the hopes of looking great. So that's one thing against him, even though it's not 100% bad. But when you saw that promo and the way he talked, he was getting a bit arrogant about trying to deliver his lines. Make it clear. It wasn't bad, but it was obvious that he was kind of feeding into the character he's playing, and you could see that he got a little bit over himself and he started botching his lines. Honestly, he was. That's just the deal. It happens for someone who's still very green in the business. It's something that's not unsurprising. But it is a story about Briggs, and it is a story about Dijak. We got something that's been built quite well when it comes to Dijak, been slowly and steadily getting to the point where he's ready for a title. And Briggs as well. The person that is the odd man out is going to be Umafemi, because legitimately you can tell he's just not there yet. Briggs is more developed. Dijak's even more developed than Briggs. And it makes sense. You can even hear when Dijak was on commentary how developed he is. There you go. Final match, which was a qualifying match, which finally ended in a flat-out brawl with everyone that could participate in that match. Well, when they find out if it's going to be a triple threat, I believe, or is it going to be a singles match, because we still have to wait until next week for, I believe, NWL is going to have their match, and the Good Brothers are going to have their match, so we don't know, but it is Alpha Academy with Otis, and Akira Tozawa versus the champs. My gosh, Akira Tozawa spun around like a freaking top. Guys, when you saw that match, particularly two times. One, when you saw Braun Breaker go back and forth and go such a high speed that when he clotheslined Tozawa, that he literally did a cartwheel in the air and hit the ground, and he wasn't that far from the ground. That shows you how light he is. And then when you see Braun Breaker and Baron Corbin, Braun froze him up in a press, and Akira Tozawa basically gets driven into the mat. It just shows how light he is and how much he can take. That man is in great shape. But that just shows you where they're going with their tag division, which is good. It's not bad. And we got all this craziness going on. And I'm not saying it's done very well, though. Let's make this clear. Because the LWO mainly works on the main roster and they just come back here. And the Good Brothers have now just re-arrived in NXT. It just still feels disjointed when it comes to their tag division. But it does feel more... focused. Let's make it clear. Braun Breaker and Baron Corbin feel more focused than when it comes to Judgment Day. It just does. It feels more focused because you're not worrying about jumping between two shows, and majority of the time it's not really done that well. Finally, let's talk about the drama done well. Roxanne Perez's own VidPack. Okay, it was done well. But I believe the one that sounded better than her for the first time for me personally was Laya Valkyria, when you hear how she's talking about how you develop as a champion, what drives you, it's much better and more focused on what she normally does. Because let's be honest, she's not great with promos. She's never been really great with vid packs either. But this one was one of the best I've seen so far from her. And it felt legitimate. It felt like it was done correctly. Now, so Ruka, who's going to be dealing with Davenport, that she did have a interview after the vid pack was done, it feels like a good feud. And because it was set up before she left, because she did have an ACL tear, and they gave her this opportunity to get beaten up by Davenport, so when she came back, she would deal with Davenport and would have an automatic feud when she came back, was done well enough. Was Soruka talking well? Wasn't bad. Now, let me make it clear. I'm not trying to be partial. Soruka's freaking sexy. Sorry for the spike. I love Soruka. She's a beautiful woman. I mean, compared to me, she's here. I'm probably here. I'm a shrimp compared to her. She's a gorgeous woman. She's a great gymnastic when she used to do gymnastics. Is she great in the ring? No. She's still too heavily implemented as a gymnast than she is as a wrestler. A lot like Kiana Jordan. She's the same. They're more like this. Instead of being a little bit more like this and being mostly even-tempered, they're both like this. And that's an issue from both of them because sooner or later that's going to catch up and bite them both in the ass. It will happen. Look what happened when the Soruka, she tore ACL. That doesn't mean it was from gymnastics, but as time goes on and you're working wrestling, the more athletic you are and more gymnastically inclined you are, the much more easier to strain out the muscles that normally for regular wrestlers are not something they have to worry about all the time. So they need to crank it back eventually. But her promo wasn't bad. Neither was her vid pack. Now, let's get to Ridge Holland. Was it done well? Yes. Was it a little janky? Yes. What does this mean? Don't know yet. Because right now, supposedly Ridge Holland is stepping away from wrestling indefinitely because of his mental and physical problems, due to the fact that he's been killing people in the ring almost, and also hurting himself. So now he's stepping away. The question is going to be how they're going to book him. And this is something they're not doing on the main roster. They have someone right now who literally has stepped away from wrestling and probably will be in the back. Probably is going to work, if they do the story, work in the back as maybe someone who's helping in production or security or something like that. And we're going to see Ridge Holland do something. Maybe they'll show him being home. Don't know. But here is way more interesting than what you would normally have like from a Sami Zayn or even a Chad Gable for that matter. And Chad was not booked that well after his feud with Gunther last year going into this year. Only thing he had was his daughter. Ridge Holland, because of what's been going on lately, he hurt himself. Then he hurt Biggie Langston. Then he hurt everybody else. And then he started losing his mind and had to go to NXT. This is a very interesting and compelling story to see where they're going to go with him next. Unless it's real, which I don't think it is. This is going to reach where he'll eventually come back into wrestling, but it's going to be in a different perspective. All right. Here we go. Final thing. Oh, and Metaphor will be the host of Stand and Deliver. Had to say that. But the vid pack for Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams. Carmelo's vid pack was good. But Trick Williams, particularly when he went back to Philly, see his uncle, that is what we needed for a Trick Williams. Guys, if anybody remembers clearly, I said more than a year ago, maybe up to a year and a half ago, probably about a year to a near year and a half, that Trick Williams needed to break away from a Carmelo Hayes because he was ready. He was ready for the main roster. That's what I felt. And as you can see, he's going to wander between the main roster and here. But I'm telling you right now that I felt at that time Trick was a great hype man, but he needed to find himself. He needed to see what he could become. And look what happened. Everyone else thought Trick was, he's just some damn hype man. Maybe he wrestles all right. But one of the few people, I'm sure, one of the few that said he's got something, but he needs to expand on himself away from Trick, and then eventually has to come back to Trick to really get himself over. And now look where we're at. Stand and Deliver, where this could culminate in finally getting Trick Williams over enough that, of course, I don't think it's going to be over the feud after Stand and Deliver in WrestleMania. But at least he will be over enough that he will get his moment. Whether he wins or loses, he will get his moment to Stand and Deliver and cement himself as someone that people really loves. And look what they did in this vid pack for him. They had CM Punk. They had Booker T. Randy Orton. They brought in people that he worked with in football. A trainer of his. Going to literally where Rocky was and ran up the steps and going like this. It literally was a great segment and vid pack for him. I think this is one of the best vid packs I've ever seen him have. And honestly, as one of the best I've ever seen Trick Williams have, it's really given me a lot of confidence that when Stand and Deliver happens, it's going to deliver because, as I've been talking about for weeks upon weeks upon weeks, when it comes to SmackDown and Raw and The Rock, Cody, Seth, Drew, there has been no focus on them. Seth and Drew had no focus. They just had their segment. Yeah, JD loved it. And just Alex loved it. But why would you need to put CM Punk in the situation right here where they should just leave him alone and let him fully recover? This should be about Drew and Seth Rollins. And it's not. Drew and Seth feel like an afterthought because they are. The entire focus has been about The Rock, him coming back, and making it all about the final boss. And that is where you see the difference in WrestleMania compared to Stand and Deliver, because Stand and Deliver has allowed many of the storylines, which may not all be good, but they have been allowed to develop and to be completed. I'm not going to tell you that Cody's story was going to be great. I'm not. But having it and other supporting storylines is what's supposed to make WrestleMania work, and it's not there. Whether the story was going to be completed or not is irrelevant. The problem was that it was not going to be allowed to be completed either way. And literally, the supporting storylines either were not developed much or not developed at all, or now at this point, rushed. Look what's going on with Sammy and Gunther. It's being rushed. And worse yet, instead of using Chad like many people believe it should be, it's Sammy because he's a more stronger merchandise seller. And literally now, because people got pissed off, look who's helping him. Chad Gable. Now, Chad could turn on Sammy and screw him over, but that's not the point. You shouldn't even have to do this because you could have made the story correct the way it's supposed to be. But this is just me. Peace.